So we've got a process, we've mapped out the new hire journey, and now we're ready for sales methodology. How many of you have a sales methodology that you've built internally? How many of you a couple of you, okay, great. How many of you are using a third-party sales methodology? Such as a Miller Heiman or a Spin Selling.
Or ours.
Or Orman Upshur Group, we have a sales methodology. I see one, what methodology are you using? Sandler, okay, great. So Sandler's another popular one. So, you know, a couple of statistics, obviously you can see it up there on the screen. Sales methodology, 83% of people who are using a methodology hit quota versus those who are not. We find most staffing companies that we're working with, very few do we find where they have 50% or more of their reps hitting quota. Sales methodology will change that. And so, talk about differentiation for a second. If I was to ask you guys how you differentiate, actually I'll turn that around and I'll share a quick story with you. A couple of years ago here in Boston, I was meeting with a customer and that topic came up about differentiation. I said, so what's your differentiators? What do you think they said? Anybody want to take a guess? Price? Price, yep. Some people say price. Some of the other things that we hear quite often, well, we're local, we're customer focused, it's all about relationships, whatever that means. We know what that means, but what does that really mean?
We won the fastest growth award in the district.
Yep, we keep winning all these awards. We're, Boston Best Place to Work company. The problem is, the customer doesn't really care about those things. Those are great, but the differentiator, and Art actually touched on this a little bit in his keynote this morning, it's about customer engagement. So you go, how many of you shop at Whole Foods? Starbucks? Apple? You've all been in those stores, right? Why is it that consumers keep going into these stores and paying astronomical prices for coffee, for food, for devices? It's about the customer experience they're creating. The way you're going to differentiate is how you engage your customers. And the way that you engage customers, you need to map out a methodology. So what a methodology is, and a lot of people get methodology and sales process confused. Sales process, again, is the steps that a rep and a buyer go through to complete the sales, for the transaction to go through. Your methodology defines the behaviors and exactly what and how you want your rep to engage with the client at each touch point. So what you're looking at up here is just sort of a hypothetical, sort of process going across the top. And on the bottom would just be sort of, it's not explaining the methodology in detail, it's just kind of got some bullet points. But the point, what you want to do is you need to define in explicit detail exactly how you want your reps to engage with your clients or your recruiters with candidates at each stage of the process. So let me give you an example. When we make a cold call, how do we want a rep to prepare for the call? Did they go to LinkedIn? Did they go to Discover.org? What information gets incorporated into that call plan? How do they introduce themselves? At what point do they talk about their company, if at all? Another example, submitting candidates. I just had a call with a client the other day who told me he sent over, submitted 10 candidates with 10 resumes and 10 text screens all in one email. That's one way to do it, probably not the best way. That's one way, but my point is, your reps are probably submitting candidates slightly different from each other. You want to get consistency, and when you get consistency, your training program on how you do these things will start to deliver predictable and repeatable results. Did I miss anything on that, Jerry?
Yeah, so one way to look at it is the sales process is the underlying thread that this is built on. So it goes sales process, buyer's journey, and then methodology. The methodology is your client-facing piece. It's how your rep or your recruiter knows that they've finished a step in their sales process. The things, if you'll notice, should all be measurable and quantifiable. There should be no gut involved. As a manager, you should be able to look at each step and know that your rep has sufficiently done what they need to do to get past that.
Yep. So just going back to the story I shared a few minutes ago with that rep who's been there 18 months, he has 4 people out on billing. His manager has basically said, well, figure it out. So he's that rep is lost somewhere, anywhere in any of these steps trying to figure out, well, how should I call a client? What should I say in a cold call? What does that follow-up lead nurturing call sound like? It's kind of like saying, all right, we're going to go climb Mount Everest. Would you go climb Mount Everest without a winter coat, without oxygen, without equipment, without the proper gear? Probably not. And that's kind of the equivalent of when we don't map it out for the new hires, we're leaving them up to kind of figure it out. And that's why it's really difficult to get ROI on new hire training.
And these three things together are where companies typically plateau at a revenue level. It's understanding how to make these things work in conjunction that allows you to grow systematically and repeatably.